Good afternoon. My name is Kathleen Brown, Chair of the Virginia Beach School Board, and I call this administrative, informal, and workshop meeting to session. Madam Clerk, would you please announce the roll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Present in the school board chamber are Chair Brown, Vice Chair Weems, Mr. Bowensteel, Mr. Callen, Ms. Felton, Dr. Green, Ms. Melnick, and Ms. Rogers, and Ms. Dwyer. And currently online is Mr. Cummings. And Mr. Cummings, for the record, can you state why you are zooming in?
I'm zooming in because I'm sick.
Thank you.
And Mr. Culpepper will be joining us virtually this evening during our formal session. We are now on to school board administrative matters and reports, and I'm going to open the floor for anybody. Ms. Melnick.
So I'd like to start this evening acknowledging Dr. Robertson's email to the board about the emails that we've been receiving from the community about class rank. I thank you for acknowledging that there's been an oversight with that. But in those discussions with Mrs. Linetti and Dr. Robertson, and Mrs. Linetti's not here, and I'm going to look to an attorney to pull up bylaw 1-31. And here's my concern is that however it happened, there was a misinterpretation of state code. I understand all of that, but when we voted on this a few years ago, we directed staff to adjust policy, and we did that. And when staff could not accommodate, if you will, the policy as it was written or the direction from the board should have been notified. And then we could have decided from there how we were going to deal with whatever was on our plate. But this actually made it to PRC without the rest of the board knowing what was going on. And so our biggest job on this board is policy. And when you hear from members of the community and you don't know what they're talking about, it just kind of puts us in a bad place. So PRC should have never gotten that before it came to the board first. We should have known so that we were aware of that. And through my discussions with Mrs. Linetti, it just appears that this is happening. This has happened a few times, that the board is not aware of things that are now on a PRC agenda. So with that, I'm asking that the board now receive the PRC agenda in advance so that we know, so that we're just informed in case we hear from constituents. As a board, we don't create policy based on a single constituent's concerns about an issue. If there is an issue or if constituents do have concerns, we typically have asked staff to give us a recommendation. We talk about it as a board and we decide whether or not to send that on to the Policy Review Committee. But for the record, Mrs. Linetti, can you just read bylaw 1-31, the beginning, about the procedure of, okay.
And then I also have a question about that, Ms. Linetti.
And I'm going on 11 years of work and just the process of how it works. Otherwise, the board needs to know what standing committees are working on. Okay.
What section did you want me to read? The first one?
Is it the first section, Dr. Robertson?
This is policy formation 131, correct?
Yes, correct.
You want to just start reading? And then you can. Okay. The school board of the city of Virginia Beach, representing the people of the community, is the legislative body of the school division, which determines all questions of general policy to be employed in the conduct of the public schools. As such, it is the responsibility of the school board to adopt policies for governing schools. The power to enact policy cannot be delegated to an employee or an agency such as the superintendent or a single member of school board. Policy is a basic statement of the intent of the school board, which creates rights and responsibilities for the conduct of the school division's business. Being of a dynamic nature, policies are subject to revision by the school board. Proposals shall be developed and presented to the school board regarding policies and operations.
Stop right there. So it should be presented to the school board. And so unless it's policy review, so it's in the queue and there are existing policies, that's what can automatically just be part of PRC's job. But if we're discussing new policies or changes to policies that have come up through discussions, either from board, community, or staff, then it just needs to come to the full board. And I'm just respectfully requesting that we follow that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Melnick. Ms. Linetti, I respectfully would ask for your interpretation because my interpretation of that particular bylaw is very different. My interpretation is that the board votes on policies and it comes up to the board, and that the committee only has the authority of the committee. And when I served as chair and was not as chair of the policy committee, during additional matters, we would often bring additional stuff. The dual enrollment policy is an example. And so I have not actually, I have not seen that, but the policy was requested to go back to the committee, and the full board was actually emailed this in a constituent reply that Dr. Robertson requested it to go back to the committee.
I will note, there's another paragraph in this policy bylaw that reads, action on such proposals, whatever their source, is taken finally by the school board in accordance with its bylaws after due consideration and recommendations by the superintendent or special committees of the school board, if appropriate. Unless otherwise provided when policy is amended or repealed, the new or revised policy shall become law on it. So it does anticipate that it's possible that it's probably going to come up through the superintendent, in this case, special committees, which generally is going to be PRC, although technically other committees could present it. Now, again, there are your rules and policies. If you were to generate up here and decide that you want a policy, that you as a school board could direct that it be researched. Your procedure, since we developed the policy review committee, is to send it to policy review and run it through the evaluation. That's been our system, but technically it's your authority to do as you wish. But I think this paragraph that I just read anticipates it's probably going to come up through the superintendent or through whatever committee is responsible for that policy.
So you're saying that the policy review committee, according to this bylaw, is only allowed unless the board agrees to review a policy that comes up in the schedule as recommended. Is that your interpretation?
No, I was looking at it from when the school board can look at it. I would need to look at 128 to pull out your task for the PRC.
So I'm just gonna ask that perhaps that information go to the full board from you after you've had the chance to review it, so that we don't get stuck on a sentence or two and your interpretation, if you wouldn't mind. Ms. Rogers, then Ms. Melnick.
Sorry. I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge the following recognitions and celebrations within our community in the month of December. In this month, the community will recognize the following: HIV and AIDS Awareness Month, which is a global observance to increase understanding, fight stigma, and promote testing, and support those affected by HIV. Universal Human Rights Month commemorates the adoption of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights on December 10th, 1948, which is a landmark document outlining fundamental rights and freedoms for all people. On December 1st, the community commemorated World AIDS Day, which honors more than 32 million people who've passed from fighting AIDS. On December 6th, the community came together for the annual holiday parade at the ocean front and celebrated St. Nicholas Day, which is a tribute to the 4th century Bishop Nicholas of Myra, who was known for secretly helping the poor and inspiring gift-giving traditions during the holiday season. Tomorrow, on December 10th, the community recognized International Human Rights Day, which commemorates the anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is a groundbreaking global pledge. On December 14th, The community will celebrate the first evening of Hanukkah, which is the festival of lights and commemorates the rededication of the temple in Jerusalem. On December 21st, the community will celebrate the Yule winter solstice, which is the shortest day and the longest night of the year, and the celebration symbolizes the rebirth of the sun and the return to light in our skies. On December 25th, the community will celebrate Christmas, which is a religious and cultural celebration with several customs, including exchanging cards and gifts, special celebration feast, and holiday decorations. On December 26th, the community recognized Kwanzaa, which is an annual celebration in African American culture culminating in a special feast called the Karamu. And finally, on December 31st, the community will celebrate New Year's Eve, which is the last day of the calendar year where people reflect on the past year and look forward to the new year to come, focusing on new beginnings and resolutions.
Ms. Melnick?
Okay, I just want to state for the record that my concerns are not because I'm not upset about anything. This is just an organic thing. And I also want to remind the public that the Policy Review Committee did not always exist. That's been since I've been on the board that we created these committees, but we clearly did not change the bylaw. And so that was my interpretation, and we don't have to get into that now. We can look at that. Mine is for board awareness on policies, so that we know as a board member that something is being discussed. That's all. And in the past, before we had policy review, if it were something other than the annual review of the monthly review or whenever policies were up, things came from staff or they came from discussions from community concerns. So don't want it to be a major thing. I just want it to be right and fair.
Thanks. And I guess, Cammie, if you could just make sure that the full board gets the PRC agenda and any of our standing committee agendas, whoever needs to do that, I think that would serve that
That
purpose.
can easily be done, and I will note, your board clerk has worked very hard on your new committee. You've had a committee page. We actually posted there. We are posting the videos on there, so it's available to you and the public, but we can certainly direct it immediately to you, but we've got that all posted, and you can thank your board clerk. She took care of that for you.
Thank you. And then, of course, whatever your legal advice is, as long as that is consistently followed by the PRC and future PRCs, that would be appreciated. Additionally, I did want to reference the email, Ms. Melnick, and I know I'm getting a little long-winded here. I am going to read at least part of that meeting during our formal, that email during our formal meeting tonight, when most of the public will have the chance with our college students having their applications due. I think that it's fair for the community to know exactly what it is that our division's going to be doing. So with that, on January 13th, the board will vote on chair and vice chair. If anyone wants to indicate their interest, they can do so at this time. Those that don't choose to express interest may still be nominated at that organizational meeting. Does anyone want to express any interest at this time? Okay. We are now onto the schedule of meetings remaining 2026 affirmed and proposed 2027. The draft is part of the agenda packet that's up for discussion here. We will vote on these meetings at the organizational meeting in January, and just open the floor if there's any discussion regarding those meeting dates. Ms. Rogers.
Just a quick question. Is this going to adjust some of our times, because this is obviously a budget season with special meetings? It's going to be heavy. So I'm just, only because I need to have my own schedule down. So if we have like time adjustments, that if we could just know ahead of time.
Yeah, so I think what you're saying is as soon as we know if it's going to be earlier, that you want as much notice and heads up as possible and draw attention to it.
Yes, please. Like I said, I'm a working parent, so I have to make sure I have my schedule very tight.
All right. We will do our best to make sure that if it modifies by, 30 minutes here or there, that we communicate that. And we'll try to do so in advance as we're able. Okay. Mr. Callen.
A small technicality, but seeking clarification. I see on the agenda of the meetings, especially those that are in red ink, there is an asterisk after the workshop on several of those, but my eyes don't see a corresponding asterisk that explains what the asterisk is there for. So I'm wondering if you can elaborate on the asterisk.
Thank you, Mr. Callen. It just notates that it's a workshop. And then on March 17th, and also on January 20th, it was voted on that they would only be used on an as-needed basis. So the other ones that are asterisks are just a notification that those are a budget meeting for a budget workshop.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We are now on to the streaming update, and we welcome David Den, Chief Information Officer.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed this morning's Winter Wonderland as much as our students did. So, I'll be providing a brief update on our video services transition this afternoon. As you may remember, we are well into phase 2 of our transition. VBCPS has fully assumed all video services and broadcast responsibilities. If you've watched Channel 47 recently, you may have noticed quite a bit of new programming that is generated through the great work of our Department of Communications and Community Engagement. We've been working hard to highlight events across the division and the program and the programs that our students are really interested in. Since my last update, I mentioned to you that we were adding agenda-based chapters to the recordings of our school board meetings on YouTube. Our goal here is simple. We want to make long meetings easier for our community to navigate. We recognize that families are busy and they often come looking for one particular topic. As you can see from the screenshots provided on this slide, viewers can now click directly on the chapters that matches an item on the published agenda. So if someone, for example, is only interested in the textbook adoption section, they can jump straight there with one click. Quick, easy, and what our community was asking for. Moving on, YouTube has also implemented AI integration for all videos. Now, I will note that you need to be logged into YouTube with your Google account before you can access the AI features. However, once a board meeting video has been uploaded, you can click on the Ask button underneath the video, and it will open up a new panel to the right of the video where you can interact with AI about the contents. So here, I've asked AI to summarize a 90-minute workshop video. In a few seconds, AI has generated the summary for me. The blue numbers that you see throughout the summary are timestamps in the video where the item is discussed. I can click on the timestamp to go directly to that part of the video that corresponds to the appropriate section of the summary. As you can see, I can ask very specific questions, and I can even go ahead and type in custom questions to ask the AI. So as long as the topic was discussed during the course of the video, the AI will make strong attempts to go ahead and provide me with the answers that I'm looking for. Just as before, the answers that are provided will contain clickable timestamps that corroborate with the video content. Now, I do want to be clear that this AI information is supplementary. The official record remains the video itself. the transcript, and the approved meeting minutes. We think that this new tool gives families another way to stay informed and engaged with the work happening across the division. And lastly, we are now streaming all PRC building utilization, audit, and legislative committee meetings. Recordings for all of those meetings are posted on our VB Schools YouTube channel alongside school board meetings and other VBCPS content. Our hope is that all of these enhancements, chapters, AI support, expanded streaming, and the new programming you're seeing make it easier for our community to find the information that matters most to them. We want families to feel connected, informed, and able to engage confidently as we work through the important decisions ahead and build trust so that we can tackle the challenges together. I appreciate your time. At this moment, I'm ready to answer any questions you may have.
Madam Chair, Mr. Cummings has his hand raised to get into the queue.
Okay, Mr. Cummings, then Ms. Rogers.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Mr. Den, and I apologize that I'm not there in person because you can't see the beaming smile on my face as we're stepping forward into, a technological school, and school board. And I did a brief, synopsis of schools in this region, and I didn't see any other school doing the work that you all are doing with, chapters, AI summaries. And so not only is Virginia Beach, we're leading the way academically, but I also see us leading the way in creating transparency for the community and for our citizens. Probably my only question, and I don't know if there's an answer to it right this moment, but I would love to know, what our communication about this AI tool for parents, stakeholders, and a variety of different people, how we'll get this out there that they can utilize these tools and potential trainings for the public on how to use it as well. So I much appreciate your work in creating transparency, and I love it. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cummings. We have a number of avenues to be able to communicate to the community. We'll make sure to use some of our newsletters and other communication methods to go ahead and make sure that they're aware of these new capabilities on the platform.
Ms. Rogers?
I just want to also say thank you so much. I have been on the other end where I've had to look through hours and hours of videos, and now it makes it so much easier for the public to go back and look at what they need. So I appreciate all of your work, and I want to thank you.
Welcome.
I am very, very excited about this, so I also want to echo kudos. I think one of the very first things that I wanted to do when I got on the board was stream these meetings, and it turned out it was more difficult to get set up than I had initially thought. So I'm really happy that we're here and that we're able to stream these, and we're doing our parts to make sure that the public that can't participate and go in person during the day can see some of these important meetings. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Okay, we are now on to budget workshop number 1. It's that time, guys, already. And we welcome our superintendent, Dr. Don Robertson.
Yeah, before I get started, I'll give a public service announcement for the importance of wearing sunscreen. So all of those kids out there who don't want to listen to their parents, or spouses don't want to listen to their wives, put the sunscreen on so you don't have to have Mohs surgery. But all good. So good afternoon, Chairwoman Brown, Vice Chair Williams, and members of the board. Today, I will offer critical information to the school board and viewing public with regard to the budget dilemma that lies before us. My approach to budgeting is conservative, planning for the worst-case scenario based on all information at my disposal. We have the next 2 months to digest this information and incorporate new information as we prepare to release the superintendent's estimate of needs in late February. This presentation will set the foundation for all future budget discussions over the next 2 months, in a time that remains clouded by uncertainties at the state and federal level. It is my goal to provide greater clarity and understanding of the key factors and possibilities that will be considered in developing a fiscal year budget and CIP that meets the needs of Virginia Beach City Public Schools and falls within the confines of available funding. As you can see here, I will cover these topics, ranging from transparency through communication to budget possibilities and next steps that will inform the development of the next budget and CIP. As I shared in the opening slide, I have taken a conservative approach with my team. What I mean is we have been planning for the worst and hoping for the best. This approach allows us to consider all of the potential funding scenarios in a setting that lets my team take a strategic view without being under time constraints and stressors that will certainly be present in the month of February. As such, we have revised and expanded the number of budget meetings with the board in January and February. At the request of the board in the July retreat, in the month of January, we will be mirroring department presentations by city staff to the city council. This is a new approach that will provide the board and the public a closer look into the funding and work of each department. Recognizing that not everyone will watch board meetings, we will be continuously adding information shared in board meetings to the budget and benefits website on the internet and intranet. And of course, what Mr. Den just shared will allow our public to more easily search directly to those areas of interest. Finally, I will be meeting with key staff groups to include my executive leadership team, principals, Teacher Forum Leadership Council, Teacher Assembly, School Division Services staff, and my teacher advisory groups as another means to promote transparency and understanding in the months of January and February. So let's begin with budget drivers. And whether you start with expected costs or anticipated revenues, the goal is to build a budget that meets the needs of Virginia Beach City Public Schools and falls within available funding. So let's start with projected costs. The largest portion of our budget and all school divisions' budgets is personnel at roughly 86%. We acknowledge the great interest in and pressure to continually address staff compensation in a manner that attracts and retains top talent. Therefore, staff compensation will be a primary driver of increased costs. Next, we recognize that inflation is an area we must plan to address, as the school division does not exist and cannot exist on credit. At the end of every year, we must settle all accounts. And finally, we know we should expect new initiatives, mandates, or focused areas that will come with price tags. Together, these three areas represent key cost drivers. Turning our attention to projected revenues, first off, we are fortunate to have a positive working relationship with City Council and a revenue sharing formula that supports Virginia Beach City Public Schools and gives us stability in projecting local funding. At the state level, we have changes and uncertainties. First, the local composite index, which indicates the locality's ability to fund education, increased, meaning the state share of education will decrease as a percentage. Second, we face uncertainty as the state determines how to allocate the additional funding required as a result of re-benchmarking. We will know this impact when Governor Youngkin releases his budget on or about December 17th. And we will then have a new governor-elect, Spanberger, and team that will begin their work on January 17th. It remains to be seen the impact this will have on the released state budget. But history tells us we should expect some level of changes to the proposed budget that we see from the state later this month. Finally, we are all aware that coming out of a lengthy government shutdown, how education will be supported at the federal level is still under review, with a key decision date looming of January 30th. A final budget driver is considering how declining student enrollment combined with rising student needs may impact budget decisions. On this slide, I will share several key budget priorities. This year, we are focused on the implementation of Compass to 2030, our division strategic framework. In doing so, we have made every budget decision based on its alignment to and support of reaching the goals within our framework. With a large organization like Virginia Beach City Public Schools, we have worked diligently over the past 2 budget cycles to reduce spending in central office by almost $12 million, money that was then used by the school board to increase staff compensation. This process helped central administration streamline services through reorganization of responsibilities, attrition, and elimination of redundancies. I'm proud of this work as our decisions were aligned to and supported our new framework and protected schools from feeling any of these reductions. Moving forward, any new budget decreases will likely result in a reduction of services, extended periods to provide supports, and fewer resources. Staff compensation in the form of salary increases or support to maintain health care premiums are an annual priority to the school board and administration. Our goal is to present the school board with a budget that provides a 3% salary increase and maintains health premiums to the greatest extent possible. 2 key state-funded areas are slated to no longer be supported by the state. The Virginia Literacy Act had been supported by a 2-year, $20 million All-in-Virginia grant that supported literacy, chronic absenteeism, and tutoring. This grant ends on June 30th, 2026, offering no continued support for these areas. Canvas was adopted several years ago as the state-approved learning management system, and it is also slated to end funding support on June 30th, 2026. Combined, these supports equate to approximately $10.5 million per year, funding we have no current path to provide for in 2026-27. Today, we received our new school ratings under the new School Performance and Support Framework. A number of schools were identified for targeted support as a result of 1 or more subgroups not meeting performance thresholds. What is unclear at this time is what requirements will be mandated by the state and what funding supports will be provided to implement those requirements. Any cost to assist these schools not funded by the state must be added to our budget deliberations. Finally, the development of the Capital Improvement Program, or CIP, will play a major role as the division faces maintenance and new construction needs, with the impact of debt service landing squarely as part of the operating budget. So let's take a look at the projected revenues as we know them today. So first we'll start with federal. The projected revenue from the federal government is roughly $15.5 million, representing an increase of $750,000. Please note with the asterisk that that does not include grants, title grants and other federal grants. We know that Title I, Title II, Title III, etc., those are additional grants that are not captured in these revenues, and they are under consideration right now at the federal level. I read today that both the House and the Senate have been doing work on their proposed education budgets, but they have not pushed those budgets to the floor for a vote. It is anticipated that neither the House nor the Senate at the federal level may take any action on federal education support until late January. So it is likely we're going to have a lot of uncertainty at the federal level until the latter part of January. And again, January 30th is the date by which, if another continuing resolution doesn't occur, we could possibly see another federal shutdown. Turning our attention to state funding, our proposed state funding right now is a little over $507 million, representing an increase of $12.5 million. What that does not include is the fact that our local composite index went up from 0.4138 to 0.4172. And what that means is that it's very likely when they calculate the rebenchmarking amount, the $508 million will be adjusted. Locally, through the revenue sharing formula, that is a number we can count on. A little over $564 million, representing a $9 million increase, is what we're going to get from the locality. So these are our projected revenues that we are working from right now, recognizing that we have little confidence in the state or federal numbers as we stand here today. So let's take a look at some budget comparisons, fiscal year 26 to fiscal year 27. So in the fiscal year 26, the total revenue was $1.065 billion, and our total expenditures were $1.065 billion, because we cannot run a budget in the negative. And we project out the fiscal year 27 with those numbers you just saw on the previous slide. We're projecting a revenue of roughly $1.087 billion, with total expenditures being, again, calculating in a 3% raise and some other things, to be $1.107 billion, meaning that we are starting the budget process with roughly a $20 million deficit. There's a couple of numbers down at the bottom. A 1% raise, we approximated at $6.2 million. We received some information from Siegel the other day. That number is closer to $19.8 million. But I did not want to change that number because that number is what I've shared with staff. So, and I didn't have the Siegel information then. But just so you know, the Siegel information I have turns that 6.1%, $6.2 million to more like 1% is $6.6 million. So closer to that $20 million for a 3% raise. So given the reality of projected expenditures exceeding projected revenues, what are our possibilities or options to explore over the coming months? Recall in the first slide, I share we would plan for the worst and hope for the best, or simply better. Should we receive funding above state and or federal projections, then we would be better positioned to eliminate some of the things we will be considering over the coming months. Certainly, we can expect a series of highs and lows as we work through the budget season to reach a final budget for 2026-27. The largest budget driver is personnel costs. And we currently have planned to support a 3% salary increase. And again, in our current planning model, funding the approximately $19 million to fund a 3% raise will require significant reductions to both programs and positions. Both of these areas will come with risk to the division. Recall over the past 2 years, we have already reduced central office spending by almost $12 million. And we did this by, again, eliminating certain resources through attrition and not filling vacancies out of the school level, meaning we kept schools protected from any of those decisions. Moving forward, taking this approach will absolutely result in real loss in the areas of service, supports, and potentially staff morale. The deeper the cuts to achieve a salary increase goal, the more the loss will be felt across the system. Now, if the decision as we move to the late February presentation of the SEON is to have a salary increase goal below 3%, the less risk to significant disruption to services and supports. And finally, I will share the idea of fees that have been used in the past to cover division expenditures. I can recall a time when families paid textbook fees, rental fees, etc., as an example. Some final takeaways. Governor Youngkin will release his budget on or about December 17th, which will give us a new picture on potential state revenue. The State General Assembly convenes on January 14th, and Governor-elect Spanberger is sworn in on January 17th. The federal budget runs through January 30th. School administration will present a series of budget workshops on January 13th, January 20th, January 27th, February 10th, and February 17th, which will give us plenty of runway, so to speak, to decide how we're going to react to either new revenues or projected revenues coming to fruition. And the superintendent, myself, will present the superintendent's estimate of needs for information on February 24th. So there's been a lot to digest here, and I think the big takeaway is we are planning for all types of scenarios, and we want to give the board and the public our best thinking about what we might do. But there is a lot of uncertainty right now from two big funding sources, the state level and the federal level. And if you recall last year, we, and a couple years prior to that, we got through the superintendent's estimate of needs and then had to go back a second time because there was no state budget at the time of adoption. So there'll be a lot of work to occur over the next several months, and the team and I are poised to do so. So at this point, I'm open for any questions.
Ms. Melnick?
Well, this sounds super fun. I cannot wait. This, but two things. Thank you to my colleagues for the additional meetings. If we need them, great. If there are times that we don't need them and can cancel them, great. But my theory is always with communication and giving people more opportunity to hear the information, to learn about our budgeting process, and between this and what we're doing online, if you don't know, it's because you're not looking or you're not tuning in, but there's going to be no excuse for not knowing because it's going to be out there, and we're giving people more than one day a month or twice a month to come and hear this information. I will, without getting any into my budgetary concerns, other than to say I'm very worried about losing supports. So I appreciate and thank you in advance for thinking broader and deeper and out of the box to make sure that that is not what we lose, because we are known for not only offering children top-notch education, but it's our supports that really put us on the map and what we offer children. And so I do worry about that one little piece, but thank you in advance for all the work you're doing so far.
Well, if I could add, the three meetings in January 13th, 20, and 27, are going to be critical because that's the new approach that we are bringing to the board at the request of the board, where each department will stand before the board and share information related to their department. How many people work in the department, what are their key tasks, what are their needs, and what changes have they been considering? Because we've been working with our teams since July to identify areas that if we had to reduce, we would reduce, and so we'll be able to stand before you and tell you exactly what impact that will have.
And that's highly effective, Dr. Robertson, just like what you do in at back to school, when you have all the departments come and talk about what they do and what they've done and where they're going. That is highly effective, and I think that people are really going to appreciate that. I know the board will, but yeah, thank you.
Mr. Bowensteel?
Yes, thank you, Superintendent, for that information and the upfront to get prepared for this. But I'm trying to figure out exactly how to ask this. We raised our prices on our sporting events. Is there any information, evaluation, or data that shows how that's going?
Yes, so we'll make a note to bring you, in fact, I think we already have it on the forecast, to bring an update. But Mr. Bowensteel, it's gone well. It's done exactly what we hoped it would do. It's allowed us to build up the fund balance to make sure we can cover our police officers through the year and also provide our coaches that salary increase we talked about. So it is working exactly the way we had hoped it would work, and we will present information to the board. We probably should do it, Mr. Delaney, now. We finished the fall season. Let's do a fall season update, and then we can do one after the winter. So you can expect that Yeah, we'll send it to you, throw a memo as soon as we get it available. But the fall season's over, so we have that information now.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mr. Callen?
Thanks for this report. I just wanted to clarify what I heard, that the 1% raise is not a 6.2, but a $6.6 million number.
That's correct, based upon information we received from Siegel last week.
And you made reference to a $19.8 million number. I'm assuming that's in reference to if we did a 3%
Yeah,
raise, it would be.
that's correct.
Okay, just wanted to confirm the numbers. Thank you.
Ms. Rogers?
Thank you so much. I know that this budget season is going to be difficult, but I am highly concerned that under budget possibilities, one of them is funding stamp compensation below 3% would reduce cuts to targeted existing programs and positions. We pay our staff the lowest in all of Hampton Roads. Asking them to take yet another blow after our entire debacle with healthcare is not acceptable to me at all. I can't even begin to digest it. And so we're going to have to find other creative solutions. What I am interested in is I've been involved with Virginia Beach City Public Schools since I moved here in 2016. And I did pay attention to budget season, perhaps not to every moment because, you know, it's not the most exciting thing in the world. But I will say that every year there was a lot of discussion about the reduction of staff. And so now we're hearing again that, you know, central offices has reduced as much as they possibly could. Could we get, at least for the last 3 years, the positions that we had and then were eliminated, as well as how many positions we still have in central offices? I think that the least impact to our students and staff in the buildings is the most important for us to protect. Our students must be serviced. The only way they are serviced appropriately is by having adults in the building that can service them. And if we can move some of our staff from central offices to our buildings to support these students, that's might be something we need to look at. But I'm just not at all ready to ask our staff to take yet another hit because of budget. We have to be able to support them.
And Ms. Rogers, we can absolutely get you that information. And you want the last 3 years?
That would be great.
Sure.
Thank you.
And if you could just get that to the whole board.
Correct.
Thank
That's
you.
correct.
Ms. Felton?
Thank you, Chair Brown. Dr. Robertson, thank you for this detailed report and trying to peer into the future as best as possible. I do appreciate that as well. When you begin talking about all the Virginia Literacy Act and Canvas, it brought on alarms for me, but you brought up the word option, and I do appreciate that as well. But my concern is, and I know we are having a lot of budget meetings, and one of your responses was budgeted possibilities. And you mentioned the introduction of fees as a result. I'm hoping that in this process that we are moving, we communicate as much as possible to our parents and to our community. And in this case, as this budget looks the way that it's looking, we need to meet them where they are. And I would like to see us going far and beyond, out of the bubble, out of the box, to make sure, because this will affect them as well. If I'm still getting a conversation about the fees that they have to pay on their iPads and Chromebooks, and being parents being garnished, we really need a home on it. I would love, my expectation is that we reach far beyond communicating with our parents, and again, I would say meeting them where they are. I am so excited about the new advancement with YouTube, and we can probably guide them to them that as well. But I want us to do much as we can. It's important. Thank you.
Dr. Green?
Thank you. Dr. Robertson, I'm happy that we are going to be having a lot of workshops. And one of the things that came to mind while you were talking, as a former counselor, I thought about how our counselors and building administrators are getting ready when we return from the holiday to start building master schedules, looking at courses, programming for next year. In our earliest workshops, will it be possible for us to have any programs that you feel may be significantly impacted budgetary? And the reason why I request that, I hate for parents and students to get excited about some course options, but due to things beyond our control, we won't be able to offer. And I think as much as possible, and I know we're going to always have those courses or programming that, you know, we don't have sufficient enrollment, that we may not be able to offer, but anything that we already have an inkling or know that it's going to be tough to continue that, I would appreciate, and I'm sure the public would as well, knowing up front that, you know, that course or that program may not be available.
Yeah, and so, Dr. Green, during the presentations by the various offices, they'll be presenting how many current positions they have and how many positions they're going to project based upon what current funding we're operating off. And they will be able to tell you what those positions are and what they do. Because we don't know what the final dollar amounts we're going to receive are, we're going to have a lot of discussions about a lot of what ifs. And it's our job to bring to you, as board members, every possible scenario, and then it's your job as the board to help make a decision about how do you put the budget together. You know, what do you prioritize? And again, this presentation is really to establish the tone that if things don't improve at all from a funding scenario, we're going to be in a really difficult position. However, if they do improve, even a little bit, we'll be in less of a difficult situation. And so we'll bring you as much information as we can well in advance so that you can make those decisions prior to February 24th.
Mr. Bowensteel?
Yes, thank you. After listening to Ms. Melnick and some other concerns, it's my opinion that those two meetings that, as needed, we should just go ahead and schedule them. We need them.
Well, so.
I mean, we owe it to everybody.
Yeah,
I mean,
Mr.
if we, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, they're definitely scheduled, and we're planning on filling them. A request we received was, boy, please don't bring us in for 30 minutes, right? And so we'll make sure that as we are planning ahead, and we've done a lot of planning, so we have a pretty good idea where we're going, we can give plenty of information to the board as to whether or not we can overlap a meeting and run a little longer or hold every one of those meetings. But my staff have it on their calendar. They're ready to go.
Ms. Melnick?
And as I'm looking out at staff, I want to thank you guys too, because I know it's your job, but this is a lot of work. Thank you. Thank you to everybody upstairs, all of our budget people. That our budget season, we don't have a budget season that's for everybody who's listening. It's 12 months a year. But to staff, I thank you in advance. And Dr. Robertson does say this when we welcome new people into the family, like he thanks the families. Thank you, because this is going to take up a lot of your, a lot of time. So thank you, you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks.
I have a couple of questions, and I also want to echo, some concerns. I do recognize this is going to be a difficult budget year, but I also, wanted to thank everybody and the school boards too as well, for a willingness to dive in deeper in this budget. I kind of think as a school board member, I've voted for every budget that we've had. But I haven't always been 100% happy about it. And so I feel like this is going to really make those decisions a little bit more clear for me. I would be remiss if I did not mention my concerns about the health fund balance. There was a memo sent to the school board. I wish I had it in front of me, but I had. There was a memo sent to us, and it shows the projection for 2026. With those revenues, employee and employer being lower by roughly $10 million for 2026. And I'm assuming that that is health insurance year, January to December, not fiscal year. So I'm sure there's a difference there that may be making it a little more alarming. But I'm very concerned that that still is showing basically that we're going to be coming up with less than we need in that health fund, and that it would be depleting that balance down. So I am going to signal that I'm going to be looking at that pretty hard this year, because I think that it needs to be looked at. I don't really want to get in the habit of mid-year money moves, because there is some historical precedents of a budget shortfall, not by the members sitting on this board, but a Virginia Beach school board, and I don't want to run into that position. So I just want to say I'm concerned about that. And then I wanted to signal I'm not going to say no to a fee, because I haven't seen what types of proposals that would be, but I do find fees in general to be difficult, because families are also experiencing similar budget difficulties that we may be looking at here as a division. But I do thank you, and I think that we have our work cut out for us, and so I appreciate everything. And staff, I know this is going to be a long budget season, so I thank you all for all your hard work on this.
If I could add just two comments to your comments. So first, I'll start with the term possibilities. Possibilities are simply things that have come up in discussion amongst our team. You guys haven't come up with possibilities yet. So your possibilities are going to be added to our possibilities, and those possibilities will turn into yays and nays, right? So I don't want anybody to walk away from listening to this saying, oh, well, now they're going to charge us fees. No. It's a possibility we need to explore. Oh, we're not going to be able to pay staff a 3% raise or higher. No, it's just a possibility, because that's really the purpose of this presentation, is the signal. We've been working on this for a very long time. We've got a long runway ahead of us, and it's an unclear runway because of state and federal uncertainties. Then the second thing is, there is an elephant in the room, and that's the health care issue. Now, thankfully, this board supported and worked with the city council to support $5.8 million being allocated to rebuild that health fund balance, which is going to be a game changer. And we also recognize that we're probably going to have to make another investment into the health fund balance, so we don't put ourselves in a precarious position where bills come due and we can't pay. But that is a discussion that will come February 10th, actually, when we get another presentation from Mercer. So that'll be a discussion point at that point. So, thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted for the public and the board, the numbers that I was looking at are the estimated fiscal year 2026, showing employer and employee at roughly 116 million, with expenses at 128, with an $11 million estimated difference there. And so that's the elephant in the room that I was referencing. All of us got that in memo, but I can forward it if anybody wants me to forward it again, so that you can look at that. So thank you. I appreciate that. All right. We are now on to the forecast of regular school board meeting agenda topics. 2026, that's the third quarter, January, February, March. That is in your packet, and it's also here in front of you. And I just open the floor if there's any questions or discussion, and Dr. Green and then Dr. Robertson.
In reviewing the forecast, and I may be getting ahead of maybe something that will be said, I had a discussion earlier in the fall with some of the staff about possibly having a workshop update on how Thrive is doing in the schools, because after our first semester would probably be a good time to do that sometime during the third quarter. I know we're heavy with workshop for budget, but I think it's also important that we still continue to monitor any new implementation. So I hope it's somewhere during this third quarter, because that may guide us in what refinements need to be made next year as principals build master schedules for
Yeah, Dr.
with
Green,
Thrive.
we've scheduled that for February 24th,
Okay, good, okay.
on their middle school schedule update.
Oh, good. I missed that. Thank you. Under middle school schedule update. Great.
Yes.
Ms. Linetti, do we have time for closed? Okay.
What did she say?
Yes. Vice Chair Weems?
I move that the school board recess into closed session in accordance with exceptions to open meetings law set forth in Code of Virginia 2.2-3-711, Parts A, paragraphs 2, 7, and 8, as amended to deliberate on the following matters. 2, discussion or consideration of admission or disciplinary matters or any of the other matters that would involve the disclosure of information contained in a scholastic record concerning any student of any public institution of higher education in the Commonwealth or any state school system. However, any such student, legal counsel, and if the student is a minor, the student's parents or legal guardian shall be permitted to be present during the taking of the testimony or presentation of evidence in a closed meeting if such student, parents, or guardian so request in writing, and such request is submitted to the presiding officer of the appropriate board. 7, consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation where such consultation or briefing in open meetings would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body. For the purpose of this subdivision, probable litigation means litigation that's been specifically threatened or on which the public body or its legal counsel has a reasonable bias to believe will be commenced by or against a known party. Nothing in this subdivision shall be construed to permit the closure of a meeting merely because an attorney representing the public body is in attendance or is consulted on a matter. 8, consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. Nothing in this subdivision should be construed to permit the closure of a meeting merely because an attorney representing the public body is in attendance or is consulted on a matter, namely to discuss A, student matters, B, status of pending litigation or administrative cases, C, consultation with legal counsel regarding probable litigation and pending litigation matters.
Moved by Vice Chair Weems, seconded by Ms. Melnick. Any discussion? Seeing none, I call for the vote to go into closed session.
So, Madam Chair, we have 9 ayes. The motion did pass to go into closed session.
Thank you.
Whereas the school board of the city of Virginia Beach has convened a closed meeting on this day pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the school board of the city of Virginia Beach hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
All right, motion made by Dr. Green, seconded by Ms. Dwyer. Any discussion? Seeing none, I call for the vote to certify closed session.
So, Madam Chair, we have 9 ayes. The motion did pass for certification of closed session.
Thank you. We will now recess and we will reconvene at 6 p.m. for our formal meeting.